Hey everyone, it's George Couros with another episode of the Innovators Mindset Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. For many, it is a long weekend, and I hope that, first of all, you notice that, which, some people probably don't because of how the days have been. So if you have a long weekend, I hope you get some time to relax, chill out. It is May 22nd when I am recording this, and in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, it is actually snowing, which if you live here is not surprising, but it always is a bit disappointing. But that's the reality of living in this beautiful part of the world. You get snow late into the springtime. But again, thank you for joining me. I hope you're doing well. And I hope, like I said, you're getting some time to chill out, relax, and just look back and appreciate all the things that you've been doing. And I think it's really important to kind of take a step back, that we often get caught up in the moment of where we are. We often get caught up in, how we're feeling at this time. And one thing that I've really tried to work on is we always continuously look towards growth and the future, it is really important to take a step back to look at where we've come from and, what we've done. And especially during this time, it is extremely crucial to appreciate the things that you're doing for your kids, for your colleagues, and for yourself. Because when this kind of all started at the beginning of March, I think if you look 2 months later, you might actually be surprised at how far you've come. So just take that time to appreciate that. And the thing that I'm going to talk about today is really kind of the idea of like, how do we get other people to change and what that actually means, and really kind of putting in the perspective of what's going on in the world right now. And here's something that really is important to understand, is that you actually can't make anyone change. That really what you can control is yourself. And I always say this, is that you can't make others change. You can only create the conditions where change is more likely to happen. People have to come to that realization themselves. And I remember actually distinctly having a conversation with an administrator several years ago, and they were talking about all of these things that their teachers weren't doing, and some of the things that they weren't willing to embrace. And it was kind of like, they're not doing this, they're not doing this, they're not doing this, right? And we all get frustrated, and I understand that space. And I actually stopped him as a conversation and saying, well, if your job is to lead, maybe it's you. Maybe you're not doing something to get other people to embrace this change. Sometimes when we have these great ideas, we want people to try different things, and we try one approach and it doesn't work. Sometimes what we do is we try that approach harder, as opposed to maybe changing the way we think, change the way, we have conversations, changing the direction of what we do. And really, like I said, those conditions have to change around people. And if you see the people, for example, if a teacher is working, and there's like, I don't know who said it, but I thought it was really interesting, is that if you are teaching a concept, over and over again, and your students are not picking it up, and I should say, if you're teaching the concept the same way over and over and over again, if your students are not picking it up, it's actually the students who are not the slow learner. And, when we have expectations for educators to, if you do the same thing over and over again with a kid, it doesn't work, then we expect them to try to do something different to make it work, not the kid to change. And it's like, when I can't remember the exact quote, but the idea of like, when a flower doesn't bloom, we change the environment, not try to fix the flower. And that was I think that would kind of stop that administrator, dead in the tracks. And that was the purpose, was to get them to say, okay, what are you doing? What do you have control over in what you're sharing? And the reason I'm even talking about this is I was having a conversation with a group of educators, and one of the things they said to me was how surprised they were that some of their colleagues were embracing things that they've never maybe been willing to embrace. And I'm sure that anyone listening to this could, say the same thing. But I think the reason many people are embracing these things is not because all of a sudden they see the relevance. It's because this is the only way, for some, that we can actually connect with our students, right? If you are in a space where kids are coming to you every single day, and that actually doesn't happen anymore, the only way that you can actually create those connections is probably through technology. And the reason I bring this up is because, a lot of times I try to share like why, things need to change, show kind of the context, but I don't think really anyone needs that right now. People are seeing why things are not working, why things don't work for kids. And it's so apparent. But it's also understanding that, a lot of those people that that some might be shocked that they're trying new things. I'm not that shocked, because those same people, and this is, assuming this intent, have always wanted to do what's best for kids. And sometimes we think what we're doing is best for kids, and what if someone else does something different, it's not. We have different perspectives, and the idea that, many kids, there's things that I do that I'm really good at that I know kids would benefit from, and some kids actually might not. And I know that I make that assumption about, people using different methods, different ways of teaching, that some of those methods, and really what we need to do is kind of find, where is those variances of trying different things, and actually how we think different. And just a few things that I've been thinking about, it, kind of in this context, is that change is way easier to make happen when you have no choice, right? Like when you have to make it happen. The other thing is that really, I don't know if there's ever a direct resistance to the use of technology, but more of an uncertainty of how technology would benefit students positively, that they would actually benefit. And then finally, that maybe people weren't really slow to change. They just didn't see the value of doing something different. And a friend of mine shared something years ago, and I've shared it often. They basically said teachers are not scared of change. Teachers are scared of wasting their time on something that actually doesn't benefit kids. And so really, when we look at that opportunity, when we have that understanding of we need to ensure that people see the value before anything, that's what's really crucial. And I'll share a quick story on something I did that wasn't really beneficial, and kind of how I changed my ways. And so when I was a principal in my first year, I remember wanting all of our staff to blog, because we were using blogs for portfolios. And I kind of would hammer home like, hey, look, we gotta get going. This is really important. If we don't do this, we're falling behind. We're becoming irrelevant. And so kind of putting that pressure, like if we don't do this, we are, we're doing a disservice to our kids, and always focusing on the things that we weren't doing, that we weren't able to do. And I'll tell you, it wasn't effective. It didn't get people excited about things. They didn't see all the possibilities for students. They see the benefit for themselves. And kind of hammering that home, that notion of like, if you don't do this, you're becoming irrelevant, it doesn't work. And so I knew this wasn't effective, but I also saw the value, and I saw why this would be really crucial. But I had to change the way that I delivered that message and how I connected with people. And I actually remember one teacher that was extremely resistant to this. And I say resistant in the sense that they were resistant because I wasn't be able to effectively communicate it, not because they were a bad teacher. And I think that's a really important point, is that sometimes we say that people are resistant, and that's more, we kind of identified that more as a reflection on them, not necessarily us. And so I saw, okay, like what can I do to change this mentality? And I would actually do this thing, and I did this not only as a school-based administrator, but a district administrator as well, where I would actually go into classrooms and I would just pop up my laptop and I would answer email, but I would sit in that same classroom for 3 hours. And I was very explicit with the teachers that I would go into and enter their spaces with. I'd say, look, I'm not here to evaluate you. I got to get some work done, but I really want to evaluate the environment that we've actually put you in. So some of the things that take for granted, like Wi-Fi not connecting, how long it takes to log in, just the seating arrangements, all these things. If I'm making decisions that impact the classroom, my belief is I better be in those classrooms, better see what's happening. And so as I'm sitting there answering emails, this teacher who I had deemed in my head as resistant to some of this stuff, I was watching her, and she was incredible, and not using technology, not just doing really incredible things. And I was just sitting there blown away. And someone who I had kind of labeled in my mind at the time as someone who wasn't really willing to try new things, there was things she could do that I wasn't able to do. And so I talked with her after, and I shared, I'm like, you know what? I actually sat in your classroom and I saw this, and this, and I'm just blown away. Absolutely incredible things that you're doing. And it would be amazing if all of our other staff could kind of get some of this experience from you. Would you be willing to sit down and write a blog post with me so we could share some of these things that you're doing? And she was like, 100%. I'll do it in a second. And so the difference here, the first year I was focusing on what we couldn't do. And then the second year, what I really started to shift was focusing on what we could do. And when I started focusing on that, when I started focusing on the value that people had, what started to shift was people were more willing to try things that, maybe they weren't comfortable with. Because if people don't feel valued, then why are they going to take risks? Because they already feel like you see them in a detrimental way. So if they screw up doing something. And so really kind of going in that space and sharing in a different way, it's actually was really, really beneficial. And one thing that we need to learn from this and really take home, like there's so many things that we could take away from, what is going on in the world today, is that really the majority of educators will do what's best for kids. But we have to understand that what they deem best and what I deem best might be different, but they actually might be both effective. And so we need to start having more conversations, kind of connecting and learning from each other. And for me, I've really focused less on trying to change other people and more on like, how do I share ideas with them? Like, I don't really talk about teaching anymore. And the reason why is because I don't teach every day, but I always talk about learning because I learn all the time. And I think that's, for me, is really important. So I really share ideas as a learner. But as a teacher, I hope that you're interested in that, because that is what we do. We should be focusing on learning. It's actually where our starting point should be. And so I really focus on sharing ideas, and really trying to listen to different perspectives. And I think that a lot of times when we want to change people, we believe that I have to convince them of something. So that means I'm going to have to talk. I'm going to have to share this. But really, when you're actually hearing and you're finding common spaces, you're finding the places that you agree, and you're actually highlighting some of the places that you value. And by listening, not speaking, by listening, you can actually change people quite significantly. I think that's really important. In the work that we're trying to change people, like I hope that people, who want me to think differently will listen to some of the expertise that I have, because I know that some of the work that I do can be beneficial to others. But I also know, and this is really important, that a ton of work that other people can do is beneficial to me. And I want to learn from that. I want to grow. And so really kind of sharing that. So really, when we ever go back to whatever school looks like in the future, just really remember that there's overwhelming evidence that the majority of people will change when they know it's beneficial to kids. It's being proven right now. They'll do things different if they know it's best for kids. And so kind of keeping that in your mind and kind of focusing on that, that's something we should always value, is that when we want something to be different in our schools, it is on us to prove why it is beneficial to kids. And people will actually embrace that, as opposed to like, you need to change because we're not getting there. And so really, as we go forward, instead of wondering why others won't change, really focus on the incredible changes we have seen, and that people have this. They've proven it many times. And like I say, the majority, because I don't want to say all, because it's not reality. In any profession, not everyone does it. But I'll tell you, the majority of people that I've seen is just incredible. And so when we keep that in the forefront of the conversations, when we really focus on, really always, every conversation should be focused on what's best for kids. But we have to identify what that means and how it can look different for every single kid. But really how we value one another. Value are the skills and abilities that we bring every single day, to the work that we do, but also value that we're all willing to grow and get better for kids, because this has been proven so much during this entire time. Just some thoughts that I had, and just kind of guiding. I know that this conversation, what I'm saying to you right now, I'm going to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have said this 5 years ago. And it's really kind of my growth as I continue to grow in the work that I do. What I realize is the more that I learn, the less that I know. And there's so much that out there, there's so much expertise and talent and abilities that we need to tap into, not only of our colleagues, our staff, but of our students as well. And really, when we value people, they're more likely to try different things. So thanks for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope you have an awesome long weekend. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Take care.